Okay, good morning, everyone. Thank you for participating on our webinar today. So as you know, the title of our webinar today is about ending conflict, but we will use the conflict in Bosnia and Herzegovina as an example so that you can further understand about the topic. So my name is Qistina Maisarah and I will be the moderator for today. Oops. These are the name of the panelists who are going to explain in detail about ending conflict and also about the Bosnia-Herzegovina conflict. So as you can see, these are all the names of the panelists. Athirah Izzati, Najwa Esafina, Najwa. We have two Najwas today. Nurul Najira, Puteri Norsyakirah, myself as the moderator, Sarah Sufiah and Tengku Batrisyia. So without further ado, let's start our topic, our webinar for today. So Ms. Athirah, could you please explain to us what is it about ending conflict that we have to know?
Okay, thank you, Qistina. Okay, as we know, it is always easier to get into a conflict than to get out of one. Okay, so conflict termination is
Sorry. Technical difficulties.
Okay, it's okay. Oh, it's okay. Okay, so conflict termination is a formal end of fighting, and then but it's not the end of the conflict. So U.S. doctrine holds that the goal of military operation is to set the condition that compel belligerent decision maker to end hostilities on terms favorable on the United States and its allies. So for our topic, we use Bosnia and Herzegovina as an example. So the Bosnian War was an international armed conflict that took place in Bosnia and Herzegovina between 1992 and 1995. So the war is completely seen as having started on 6 April 1992 following a number of earlier violence incidents. So the war in Bosnia and Herzegovina came as a result of the breakup of the Socialist Federal Republic of Yugoslavia. So a crisis emerged in Yugoslavia as a result of the weakening of the confederational system at the end of the Cold War. And then in Yugoslavia, the National Communist Party, the League of Communists of Yugoslavia, was losing its ideological potency.
Okay. Okay. Thank you so much, Ms. Athirah, for your explanation on ending conflict as well as providing us an insight on the Bosnia-Herzegovina conflict. So here in the slides, we know that conflict termination is the formal end of fighting. However, it is not the end of a conflict. So you can see the difference between in the terms used, which is fighting and conflict. It is important to distinguish the two to ensure that we won't have any misunderstandings. So following the explanation on ending conflicts, let's move on to settlement strategies. So as we know, to end a conflict, we need to employ various types of settlement strategies. So for this part, Ms. Najwa is the expert on various settlement strategies. So without further ado, Ms. Najwa, could you explain to us what are the various types of settlement strategies?
All right. Thank you, Ms. Qistina, for allowing me to explain a bit about the types of settlement strategies for this case. Well, negotiation is like one of the way of reaching a consensus or agreement while preventing conflict and disagreement, and individuals rightly seek the best possible result for their role in every conflict or perhaps an organization that they present. So generally, negotiating skills, on the other hand, can be also acquired and used in a variety of situations. And next, by using mediation strategy, whereby mediation is a complex, formal, and collaborative mechanism that we can use. And a neutral third party uses advanced contact and negotiation tools to assist disputing parties in resolving conflicts. Both mediation participants are also encouraged to take an active role in the process. Nevertheless, a strategy of conciliation used in resolving a conflict by referring it to a specially formed body task with elucidating the facts and also making the resolution suggestions to the parties involved. And last but not least, a judicial settlement is when a dispute, last but not least, a judicial settlement that can also be used, can be defined as, is when a dispute between two countries is resolved by an international tribunal in compliance with the laws of international law. The International Court of Justice, ICJ, International Tribunal for the Law of the Sea, its laws, the European Court of Justice, the European Court of Human Rights, and the Inter-American Court of Human Rights are all the permanent international tribunals that we can use. I think that's all from me.
All right, okay. Thank you so much, Ms. Najwa. So from Ms. Najwa's explanation, we can tell that there are various types of settlement strategies, and some of them includes negotiation, conciliation, and also submitting the conflict to a judicial body, which is at the end of the slide, you can see it's written as a judicial settlement, where we can submit the conflict to the already established international tribunals like the ICJ, the ITLAS, and the European Court of Human Rights and others. So now that we know the different types of settlement strategies, I think it is important for us to also know why are they important. So Ms. Puteri, could you further elaborate on the significance of these settlement strategies in ending conflicts?
Thank you, Qistina, for this opportunity. Okay, actually my slides related to Najwa's slide, so I would like to explain the significance of settling the strategies in ending the conflict. First of all, in ending the conflicts, it is important for us to put both parties in a good cooperation by underlying their interests. Because a concrete demand held by both parties may bring a great solution in settling the issue or dispute because they are focusing on the same interests. Conflicts also must be translated into the language of needs because the solution also can be easily found since the basic human needs such as the identity, the liberty, the security are satisfied by both parties that in the dispute. There's also some analysis stated that the conflict also could only be resolved whenever the needs focused by both parties. This conflict resolution is also known as the classical approach that's actually used in settling conflict in a good way without facing any war. That's all.
Okay. All right. Okay, that's very insightful. It's great to know about the importance of settlement strategies because, as Puteri said, it doesn't just put both good parties in a good relationship, but it also establishes conflict resolution is also known as the classical approach, which is what was elaborated by Ms. Puteri just now. So we know that these settlement strategies have to be employed before waging war because it would do more good than harm in general. Yes. Okay. So now that we know about the significance of settlement strategies, I think it is time for us to talk about the different methods of ending conflicts. So for this part, I would like to invite Ms. Sarah to elaborate on this part because it's her area of expertise.
Okay, thank you, Qistina. Okay, I would like to explain about the method of ending conflict. Okay, negotiation is a process in which two or more parties wish for agreement to end the conflicts. Okay, the 5 stage for negotiation process, the first one is the preparation, second, definition and ground rules, clarification and justification, bargain and problem solve, and conclusion, and also implementation. Okay, 2 elements must be present in order for an agreement to take place, which are common interests and conflict over that interest. Okay, the negotiation credibility of the actors, their personalities, they must take problems and the certainty of ambiguity of the opponent's aims all influence how they behave during a negotiation. In other words, these four factors influence how an actor can manipulate the opponent's decision as well as actor's own choice of action. Next slide. Okay, negotiation must understand the mechanism, the underlying issues, and negotiation is an asymmetrical process in which both sides have access to the same knowledge, strategy, and advice. Okay, that's all. Thank you.
Okay. Hold on, yeah. I'm experiencing some sort of technical difficulties. Give me 2 minutes. Hold on, yeah. Okay. Can everybody hear me now? Is it clear?
There, yes.
All right. Okay. Okay. Thank you so much. So, now that we have already heard about the different methods of ending conflicts, it shows us that it is important to always exhaust other methods of conflict resolution before we proceed on waging war, because like Puteri said just now, it preserves the relationships between the nations in dispute. So thank you, Sarah, for the explanation. Now we can move on to the case study that we have prepared as an example to further enhance our understanding of the ending conflicts. So for this part, it will be presented by 3 different panelists, which is Ms. Najwa Esafina, Ms. Tengku Batrisyia, and Ms. Najira Roslan. Ms. Tengku Batrisyia, could you elaborate on the conflict?
Okay, thank you, Ms. Qistina. Okay, before I answer the question, let me briefly a little bit about the story of Bosnia and Herzegovina. Okay, Bosnia and Herzegovina is a country located in the Western Balkan Peninsula of Europe and once a part of Yugoslavia. But this kind of country didn't have formal status, which after the World War II, it became a part of Socially Federal Republic of Yugoslavia alongside with 5 other nation republic country in Balkan. So it included the Serbia, Montenegro, Croatia, Slovenia, and Macedonia. Okay, you need to understand the population of Bosnia was divided into 3 main ethnicities, which were Bosnia consists of Muslim people, which consists of Christian Orthodox, and Croatia consists of Roman Catholic. And in Bosnia and Herzegovina, Bosnia is the majority population at the country. Okay. The conflicts in Bosnia and Herzegovina started in 1992 when majority of Bosnia could support the creation of new independent states of Bosnia by signing the referendum. So this causes Bosnia Serb to oppose the referendum. And you need to understand too that this scenario become worse when Bosnia Serb leader Radovan Karadzic and his Serbian Democratic Party withdrew from government and set up their own Serbia National Assembly. And because Bosnia Serb ambition was to create a nation for Serbians and their aim is to live under Yugoslavia Federation was failed. And this mastermind of this conflict is Slobodan Milosevic that triggered the ethnic tensions between the 3 major ethnicities in Bosnia and Herzegovina and makes this separation becomes ethnic cleansing tragedy. So it started when majority of Bosnia and Croatia people being killed by Serb people. And how the process of ending conflicts. Can you please move to the next slides?
Yeah, yes, sure. Sorry. Okay.
Okay, how the process of ending conflict. After several attempts of negotiation between government of Bosnia and Bosnia Serb army was failed, NATO has interfered into this issue and invited Bosnia Serb to negotiate. And during that times, international actors do play their roles because the increasing of Bosnia and Croatia ethnicity that been murdered have attracted the attentions of people in the world. And in December 1995, there was North Atlantic Treaty Organization multinational force known as Implementation Forces, IFOR, to implement the peace when they're in process of negotiation. And there is also Stabilization Force, which is SFOR, that was to stabilize the peace after the expired date of IFOR mandate. Other international organization is Peace Implementation Council, PIC, steering boards, and the High Representative will also participate to help Bosnia overcome the post-Bosnia war by assisting the minority of ethnic that were left. Okay, that's all from me.
Okay, before we proceed, so we can briefly recall about the Bosnia Herzegovina ending conflict, where international participation was present in ending this specific conflict. And it didn't only took one international actor or two, it took many different international actors for this conflict to end. As mentioned by Ms. Tengku, it took the NATO Stabilization Force, the Civil Institution Party, as well as other international organizations. So Ms. Najwa, can you elaborate about the Dayton Accord? Can you elaborate about the Dayton Accord?
Yes, of course. So I will continue about, I will touch a bit about reaching Dayton Accord. So American Ambassador Richard Holbrooke brokered a ceasefire in Bosnia and Herzegovina between the varying factions. And main persons in the contract were U.S. Chief Negotiator Richard Holbrooke, European Affairs Assistant Slobodan Milosevic, Serbia Chairman Franjo Tajman, Presidents of Croatia and Alija Izetbegovic, and Presidents of Bosnia and Herzegovina. And on conversation continued for 21 days and concluded with the War Peace Accord. And on 40 December 1995, the agreements were signed. Next slide, please.
Okay, all right.
Milosevic was the gateway to the negotiations, and he dealt with Milosevic. One of the main problems with the talks was that it was not directly, but only by Milosevic. We need to negotiate with the Bosnian Serbs. Thereby, Milosevic knows the value of himself and his role functions, and hope that by helping Dayton succeed, he will save himself. That's all, Kiss.
All right, okay. Thank you so much, Ms. Najwa. So now, here we can tell that the Dayton Peace Accord was concluded as one of the byproducts of ending the conflict in Bosnia and Herzegovina. And Milosevic was, fun fact, Milosevic was the first head of state to ever be prosecuted in an international court for the crimes he committed as the head of state at that time. So proceeding, let's continue. So about the factors affecting the socioeconomic development in post-conflict situation, I think it is important for us to know about what are the contributing factors that somehow have an effect on the socioeconomic development after a conflict has been ended. So for this, I would like to invite Ms. Najira to elaborate on the said factors.
Okay, thank you, Ms. Qistina. So
Hi everyone, so I will be talking about the factors affecting socio-economic developments in post-conflict situation. So the war had left Bosnia and Herzegovina in a bad shape, and there are setbacks towards developing the country after the conflict. So there are there are a few factors affecting the developments, and the first one is by social factors, which means the reconciliation and civil society, post communication, post conflict communities where conflict, the border split between cities, the reconciliation is particularly difficult. There are opposing parties who might not be interested in a reconciling factors. Reconciling present. Okay, next slide. So the critical growth is directed towards infrastructure. The issue of privatization and foreign direct investment is inextricably linked to infrastructure reconstruction. In the background of the transition from a socialist to a market economy, they were undergoing a postponed privatization and modernization process. And then there is the internal conflict, which is also one of the effect of preventing the socio-economic developments. The Kurd community is represented by the Hrvatska Demokratska Zajednica, which is the Croats, while the Muslim community is represented by the Stranke Demokratske Akcije, which are the Bosniak. So the fear is instilled by distorted wartime ideologies in which each ethnic is portrayed by its own group and what they think of others, which means they are brainwashed to think that, uh, let's say, the Kurds with their community, they spread ideologies which says the Bosniak are, for example, like terrible people and very violent. And then it's the same goes with the Bosniak. They develop their own ideology so that they don't have to, they don't want a reconciliation. Okay, so next slide.
Okay.
Oh, okay, and then the last factor is the external political intervention. In Mostar, the Office of High Representative OHR is the most involved in terms of local socioeconomic growth and political decisions. The imposition of the city's new status, which reunified the city governments, was the most obvious example of OHR intervention. Almost all the decisions in the newly merged government are approved or guided by the OHR. Okay, so I think that's all from me. Thank you.
Okay. Thank you, Ms. Najira, for explaining about the factors that affect the socioeconomic development post-conflict. Um, so we have come to the end of our webinar, and I think that it is important for us to understand that the aftermath of ending conflicts will always place a heavy burden on states to develop their states post-conflict. This is because when they when war is waged between two nations, most of their government revenues or expenditures will be on military. So instead of resorting to war, it is better for states to exhaust other sorts of settlement strategies to end a particular conflict so that they won't waste all of their government revenues on unnecessary military expenditures and instead could direct those revenue towards economic development, infrastructure development, which comes to the last point, ending conflicts are not just to ensure that the relations of states are preserved, but it is also to prevent states from wasting their resources on military expenditures and using their resources towards building their own development. So I think we can conclude our webinar with that. Always remember that it is never okay to resort to war. Other settlement strategies should have been exhausted before war even is an option in resolving conflicts. Thank you for participating on our webinar today. Thank you for everyone's participation as well as all the panelists for making time to elaborate on the topic of ending conflict and elaborating about the Bosnia Herzegovina conflict in specific. Lastly, I apologize if for all the technical difficulties and mispronunciations that happened all throughout this webinar. Nevertheless, thank you everyone for participating. Have a good day.